My talk today is called Why Tech Software Entrepreneurship Trumps Non-Tech Software Entrepreneurship for Me. And I'm going to explain that. So we're going to have some fun with it. And I'll build up a little bit of street cred for myself so you think I know what I'm talking about a little bit, and we'll see how that goes. First of all, what I'm going to talk about today is not this slide. I noticed just about 10 minutes ago that I forgot to change my outline for today, and so this was from a different talk I gave, so I apologize for that. Now, with that, I'm going to build up a little street cred on myself and what I'm involved in. First of all, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm an investor in companies and entrepreneurs that start companies, and then I try to be a catalyst and just help people and mentor them, and that's the thing I am busy spending my time doing here in Utah. Here's a little bit of history of me as an entrepreneur. So I came out of school here at BYU in '85 and got involved in a publishing company that put out print yellow pages. It had an interesting and funny name that we developed over the years called Banana Pages, which actually was quite a good company and a great brand name. Actually reinvented the Yellow Pages industry. After we renamed the Yellow Pages to Banana Pages, every single major company stopped calling themselves Yellow Pages and started calling themselves Super Pages, Real Pages, Smart Pages. You've heard of all those different names. Nobody wanted to be known as Yellow Pages. We did that. That was a good run. The print company was great. We sold the print company, and we launched a Yellow Pages company on the internet in the first year of the internet even being a commercial vehicle. Just about the same time Marc Andreessen was writing Mosaic, which later became known as Netscape, and brought in the internet era in the mid-90s. And so I put Yellow Pages up on the internet, and then that effort merged in with some people leaving Microsoft and became known as a company, InfoSpace. And InfoSpace still exists today. It's a company with hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, never had any debt, and is public on the stock market under symbol INSP. So in 1998, I had the privilege of going through that process of taking the company public. And then when that run was all done in about 2001, I took about 9 months off, and then people like Steve, he wasn't the individual exactly, but here at the Marriott School said, if you're not going to do anything, why not come down and teach? And that's how Steve and I started working together. And so for the last 9-10 years, I've been at BYU sharing some of those things and moved the family down here from Seattle. So that's my entrepreneurial background. InfoSpace, again, still exists today, and the piece that I brought to it is still a major part of the company and is still going strong. So it's kind of fun to see that. Now, with that, the question is, 2012, what's it going to bring for me? Am I going to get back in the game as an entrepreneur? I'll touch on that later. Okay, one of my experiences here with InfoSpace, and this is a little bit about entrepreneurship and tech entrepreneurship, a little bit of why I believe tech entrepreneurship, which is the subject of this lecture series as compared to the other lecture series classes. Society over-rewards tech entrepreneurship, overcompensates, because society pays for the future potential. And tech always has a future look and feels like huge growth is coming in the future, and so it permeates the business world with future perspective. And it's kind of funny and odd and weird, but when you learn how the game is played, it's fun to be a part of the residue that happens from that. So here's the experience I had at a company. I was a founder of a company that merged in with 3 guys leaving Microsoft. So my effective price per share on this stock as a founder of a company was less than a penny a share. Matter of fact, a fraction of a penny a share. By 1998, we went public in December, and it was $15 a share when we went public the first day. It went to $20 a share after the first 7 hours of trading. And then in the next couple years, saw a 2-for-1 split 3 times in a row, leading to March 3rd, the all-time high, where the stock was at $138.50, but adjusting for the splits from the original 15 on the first day of trading, that means $1,108 per share. That's an increase of about 7,400%. As a public company, it was crazy time. other experiences I've had as an investor, these are the companies that I have invested in. Now, these are not all of them. Almost every time I give this presentation, somebody in the audience out when I give it at other places off campus, they go, wait a minute, you forgot this company, that company, and I keep adding to this. So these are some of the companies I've invested in. Some have been very good. A lot of them have died. This is the all-time worst. This is a movie. And I'm here to tell you that's not tech entrepreneurship, and movies are probably the #1 worst investment you could possibly make. So I've learned that from personal experience. A lot of these companies are technology companies running on the internet and pure play software companies. All right. Student entrepreneurship is very exciting. These are some of the all-time great companies coming out of the program here at BYU. In my almost decade here at BYU, I've witnessed these great companies go from scratch to incredible success in revenue, creating wealth, and being part of changing the world and improving their industry. It's really an interesting thing to watch. I had the opportunity to watch from scratch Omniture, even before I came to BYU, and go all the way till it was sold to Adobe for $2 billion, and just know the people that were involved at 1-800-CONTACTS. Property Solutions is an incredible story. I remember when I first got here, they won the business plan competition of the second year I was here, and now they're a company, with like 25 million revenue with offices in Provo, and now I think moving out to Lehigh or Linden or something with some of their stuff. All of these are really interesting. This fellow here, I met in the hallway here in the Tanner building. I helped him. He didn't really know what he was doing, and now he sits atop a company with 20 million revenue. He's just like you. Adam came last week and talked. Okay, so he did. I didn't know that. So he's just like you. He was a student here walking the halls of the Tanner building. There's no difference between you and him except for the fact that he just did it. And the interesting thing is that's half of the thing. Just go out and do it. And these are just some great stories I could spend a lot of time on. Here's some real recent ones. Pooj was in one of my classes, and they decided to do a non-tech company, and they did really well with it. They invented a baby bath device where you take a foam thing and fold it into like a cone shape and put it in a sink, and it becomes a perfect little baby bath. They're about on track for 10 million revenue. They got on the Rachel Ray and Ellen DeGeneres show, and it's been a rocket ship ever since. You can look that up. KT Tape was in my executive MBA class, I think, and he became the youngest donor to our program in the entrepreneurship program. He took a commodity product, KT Tape, that black tape, and he saw the Olympics where the women playing volleyball were wearing that tape. Do you remember that? That black tape, anybody remember that? Some of you remember, who remembers them wearing that black tape? A lot of you do. Well, he saw that and he goes, what is that product? And he said, how come it's just a generic name? And he said, I'm going to put a marketing name on it and create a marketing brand around it. And he did that, and he's in hundreds, if not thousands of stores across the U.S., and it's the preferred tape for sports using that, and it's called KT Tape. It's kind of amazing. Collude is an interesting one that was a big winner last year in our competitions here at BYU, and they're going out and helping companies that received investment and building up, helping newspaper companies and others get into the couponing business. And this is probably ending up maybe the most significant company achieving something in its first year of existence in the history of BYU student entrepreneurship since Omniture, maybe even surpassing Omniture in its first year. This is now called SCAN. It was QR Code City, started by Garrett Gee, and he recently has received millions of dollars of investment from Mark Andreessen, that same guy who invented the graphical user interface for the internet, Netscape. He now runs one of the most important venture capital firms in Silicon Valley called Andreessen Horowitz. And so a little old BYU student started a company, and one of the most important influences in the world of investment, technology, Silicon Valley, and the internet, has invested millions in that student, moved him out to Silicon Valley, and we'll see whatever happens to that company. It's really exciting. But this company here is on the verge of passing 10 million users, which is, in its first year, almost unprecedented. Pretty interesting. So lots of great things happen at BYU. It's such an exciting place. Now, Utah Angels is another activity of mine. I'm managing part right now of Utah Angels. It started in the late 90s and has invested about $40 million in companies in the Utah area. Big hits for it have been Omniture, Oakley Networks, and True Vision, and among others. You can go check that out at utahangels.com. Another one for me is this Utah Student 25, which we just held on March 1st, the awards gala, and the #1 company this year was from BYU, React Games. This is a student here at BYU that is getting significant revenue with a software company, a software game company, and it's just exciting. He got #1 in the state, and you can go to that website and check it out and see the listing of everybody for the past few years. So that's kind of fun. And then Boom Startup, which was talked about. This is a program that is emulating Y Combinator and Techstars. If you're studying tech entrepreneurship, you need to know what Y Combinator and Techstars are. If you don't, go to their websites. Y Combinator has literally changed the world of technology startups, and it's really exciting to see what's going on. And so Boom Startup emulates these entities here in Utah, and we're part of a national or global consortium and staying at the top of the game for that. So that's kind of fun. And a little bit about that. This is the money being raised by U.S. venture firms and the number of companies that Y Combinator is spitting out. And what's fascinating to everybody in the industry is this, is that venture firms are having less and less influence in technology startups and companies coming to market, and things like Y Combinator are having more influence. It's really an interesting time right now. And this is because it's so inexpensive to start a technology company that the old venture capital model of putting millions of dollars into companies and having a return come later for the investors doesn't work anymore, because the companies don't need enough money to make it worth the time of a venture capital firm to invest in it. And so this is a little bit broken, and right now they're scrambling to figure this out. One of the solutions is a proposal that was written by the founders of a site called AngelList, which is at angel.co. And AngelList proposed crowdfunding, where we allow and change the SEC and the Sarbanes-Oxley rules to allow anybody to invest in companies without the repercussions to the company of holding the liability of taking investment from grandmas and students and people. So it passed the House last week. I just got a communication about an hour before coming to class with a report on what this is going to change at the SEC level and at the Sarbanes-Oxley compliance level. They're throwing out tons of laws to make it possible for everybody in the country to invest in these startup companies. So you want to see what's going to happen in the next couple of years. If this passes the Senate and becomes law, there is going to be massive amounts of capital and massive amounts of companies being able to be started and a lot of liquidity. And that's the prediction by a lot of people. So who knows what's going to happen? There'll probably be a lot of fraud, too, because that's what happens when you make things easier. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's a very interesting time right now. So one more thing about Boom Startup. How it works, just to let you know, is that you get $20,000. I didn't change the slide. $20,000 for 6% of your company's stock, and then Boom Startup introduces you to the world, gets you to build your products and test your model, make your model work, etc., and does a lot of things for you. One thing we're doing right now this week, the thing Steve talked about in his introduction, is we're doing a crowd choice that closes this Saturday. If you go to this link right here, you can nominate a company to be in Boom Startup, and if that company gets into Boom Startup, then that company, I personally am going to invest $25,000 in that company. Okay? So this is kind of an interesting thing we're trying to do. So if you know of any great tech startup companies here at BYU students, make sure they apply, because it's a great opportunity. That's on top of the $20,000. Okay? All right. So you can read more about that. Other things, one thing we did recently cool, I hope you went to it. If not, it was a great opportunity. Have you been learning about Lean Startup? So these are the two worldwide gurus of lean startups, Steve Blank and Alex Osterwalder, and we brought them out in early February to Utah to speak, and it was just a great event. Okay, so that's enough about me. Did you attend, I'm asking. So hopefully I've built up a little bit of street cred with you on my history and my current activities, so that what I'm going to share with you now will bear some weight with you. So first of all, did I have enough street cred? We'll see. Let's see if you buy into what I'm going to share with you now. So I want to first talk about an assumption and a problem. My assumption is that you want to be an entrepreneur. All right? But the problem is, what type of business idea should you pursue? So let's assume you want to be an entrepreneur. Does it make a difference what type of business you pursue? Does it? Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Assumption number 2. The main goals of becoming an entrepreneur are, one, you want to change the world with your product or service. You really want to make the world a better place. You want to fix something out there. You want to make something cheaper, faster, better. And you want to create wealth, the incentive of creating wealth for you, your co-founders, your employees, people, because you're doing something better. So with those two assumptions, I have a hypothesis. The hypothesis is that tech entrepreneurship trumps non-tech entrepreneurship. And I love the game of Rook. I don't know if any of you play it here, but the Rook card is always a trump card. Trump means it's better than and takes precedence over and dominates. And I'm here to say that my argument for you in this class is that tech entrepreneurship is a special breed of entrepreneurship that should be seriously considered, and it's the only type of entrepreneurship I personally like to be involved with. Now, today's question, is the hypothesis true? Let's find out. We've got to go out to the world then and observe the data. So observation number 1, our most precious commodity is actually time. It's not money, because you can make more money, replenish more money, but you can't do that with time. Every hour, every day, every week, every month that passes by in your life is time you can't get back. And the older you get, the more advanced in your careers that you get, the more you're going to realize that time is the most precious commodity. We only have 168 hours per week, each of us, and we want to spend it optimally. And the world has a lot of effort going on to try to make sure that we're smart about how we spend our time, and you should be smart about it. Observation number 2, software-driven companies. Those companies where its product is composed of electrons are cheaper to start than tangible companies. And this is dramatically so. Right now I have a friend starting a tangible consumer product company. He has to put in millions of dollars to do architecture and design of the product, make the molds to mass produce the product, and to get a prototype out to test and see if it works. His first order wasn't good enough, so he had to go back to the drawing board and redesign and fix it, and he was now hundreds of thousands of dollars into starting that business. Software-driven companies, literally today, you can get very far along to where you've got customer development, you know the business model, you know who the customers and users will be, and having spent $0. It's amazing. It's an incredible era that you live in and that you're coming out of school in. In my day coming out of school, nothing like today's software world existed. There was software, but you had to write the software, put it onto a physical hard disk, shrink wrap it in a package, get it out through a distribution channel if they would take you of software stores, and it was just like putting a physical product like Procter & Gamble does, putting out soap. Today, all of that has been disintermediated, and it's fascinating. Product companies require expensive development. Product changes are expensive, and inventory must be dealt with. None of this exists in software companies to the same level and degree in terms of the product itself. That's observation number 3. Let me continue on this a little bit. We're in the midst of a massive paradigm shift. There's changes ahead. We're in the middle of it right now. First of all, I'm just reviewing what you've been taught about the lean startup. The corporation itself, big corporations like General Motors that were headed up by Alfred Sloan and invented the way corporations are run, we have now found out that that style of management kills startups. So we call it the Durant style of management, who is the actual founder of General Motors. And I'm refreshing you because I hope you've been taught a little bit about this. Billy Durant actually founded General Motors. He was a scrappy entrepreneur, and he managed like an entrepreneur. He got fired for it, and Alfred Sloan replaced him and ran it like a corporation. But when you start new companies, you need to run it like Billy Durant. Now, this change of thinking, of understanding startup companies, combined with these elements on this page, are creating a metamorphosis in tech entrepreneurship. The economy that we've had since 2007, the capabilities of the internet, the subculture of the internet, the sophistication, elevation of all players in the ecosystem, because now it takes you 5 minutes to go to Google and get almost any knowledge you need to forge ahead in starting a company, in building a technology product. Costs of startup are so much lower than even 5 and definitely 10 years ago. Right now, I could probably replicate Netflix's technology for under $100,000. Maybe not fully to the scalability, but I'm talking the software. And I actually did a company a few years ago that was that, and we spent $70,000. Well, Netflix probably spent millions upon millions in their first couple of years developing that same software. That's the change that's happened in software development in the last decade. So it's very interesting how that's changing. Now, key resources of this thinking, I just want to point out again, these are the definitive 4 books I would point you to find out how startup companies in tech are changing and how they're changing their approach to starting their companies. And these are Alex Osterwald, Steve Blank, Eric Ries, Nathan Furr. These are their pictures and the books that are now legendary in the industry, and I'm sure you've seen lists of these already. Okay, now Steve Blank, in his book, 4 Steps to Epiphany, has identified 4 types of entrepreneurial ventures. Now, when I think of classic tech entrepreneurship, it falls right there in scalable startup entrepreneurship. You can't see that too well on the screen, but here, scalable startup entrepreneurship or viable scalable startup entrepreneurship. Real quickly, I don't want to get too much into this, but I want you to know what we want to spend our time on is a business that scales. What that means is this: as revenues grow in the company, the number of employees and related expenses grow at a much slower pace. There's companies where the antithesis of that is true, such as if you're going to start a law firm or an accounting firm, to make more money, you have to have more lawyers and accountants. And it's a one-to-one relationship on your revenues. They're constantly trying to productize their service, like do some work that they can replicate and copy, and not have to pay the accountants and the attorneys to work on each time the same way. So they'll do it once, and they try to make that work. But it's a bad business in terms of creating wealth for the enterprise. But here, in software, we can write software once, disseminate it through the web, get lots of users paying money, and not have to hire any more employees, relatively speaking. It's a great business, and it's called scalability. And so that's one thing we're looking at. So software is inherently a scalable business. Now, observation number 4. Student entrepreneurs have a built-in advantage in starting software companies. What are these built-in advantages? First of all, you get it. You just get the connected online world because you don't remember what it was like before. Or few of you do. In here, how many remember being in school like junior high or later, and not being able to turn to the internet to get information. Okay, just the old guys. Look at that around the room. It's amazing. I watch my kids sit at my kitchen counter table, and they have a computer there, and they get this information that I used to have to take hours. In 10 seconds, they can go access information that I would have to hunt for hours to hopefully think that book from a Dewey Decimal number I got in some card catalog and hunted to the corner of the library, went and read the whole book to find the information I needed, then found out it was the wrong thing and went back and started the process over again. I'm not sure if you even understand that type of work. It's interesting. It's just a different way. I think it's really important you know how to access information and get to it quickly more than it is memorizing it. There's too much information. There's so much information being created in the time that I've spent with you, about 20, 25 minutes. Probably been more information that 20, 25 minutes created new content than probably was created in the entire year in 1960. That's what's happening. It's amazing. Okay, so coming back, student entrepreneurs have a built-in advantage. You also don't know what you don't know, so you don't know you're not supposed to do incredible things. When you're 40, or I just turned 50 this month, the world has beat it out of you. You can't do that. You're not supposed to do this. You can't go get Mark Andreessen to give you $4 million for a dumb company you started while you were a student. That's what we think when we're 40. But when we're 24, we're so naive, we think we can do it. And it ends up, you go do it. It's amazing. Matter of fact, if you think of every great internet company today, almost all of them were started by students on a college campus. Not by faculty, by students. Amazing. Observation number 5. I already said this one. Society overcompensates successful entrepreneurs in software. It's just the way it is. So all the people making physical widgets or building concrete buildings or whatever and working hard at doing great things and manufacturing physical products, that's fantastic. Somebody needs to do that. But I'm going to spend my 168 hours on software because society over-rewards me for doing it. That's why. And it's really fun to be a part of that. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's take a look at some interesting things that will resonate with you. I call this the $1 Billion Club. Data is from August 2011. Quora has had in August an $86 million valuation, but they think that they're worth $1 billion. And they've rejected offers of financing that values them at $300 million. Who's used Quora in here? Anybody? Okay. Do these kids look any different or smarter than you? Kind of look like punks to me, but anyway. Here's another. You know, they've all got the Bieber haircut now. I guess that's required. But anyway, let's look now at Foursquare. They haven't found any way to make money, but for some reason it's worth $600 million to some 20-something-year-old. Who checks in at Foursquare? Anybody? Okay. I was traveling the world recently, and I was with a donor to our program, Trent. You know Trent. And every time we were there, it was a race for him to check in and be the mayor of, you know, this mosque or that mosque or wherever you're at. It's kind of interesting. So somebody's doing it. Now, their rumored valuation is now rumored to be over $1 billion, but the provable number is $600 million. AppNexus raised a $50 million round. Somebody gave them $50 million, sending them very close to $1 billion valuation. ZocDoc raised $50 million in August at a $700 million valuation. There are scads of companies around the country doing this and around the world. So why aren't you? That's the question. Spotify's latest $100 million round shot it up to a $1 billion valuation. Storm 8 in August was rumored to be raising $300 million, giving it a $1 billion valuation. You probably haven't even heard of the company. Square, also $1 billion valuation, possibly $2 billion. Gilt Group raised $138 million in March of 2011 at a $1 billion valuation. It's also on track, though, to generate $500 million in revenue. These companies are for real. Airbnb, which was a Y Combinator startup, so a company, a group of guys just like you or gals just like you, applied to Y Combinator, said they had an idea for changing this industry. They got into the program, got a little help, and now they raised $112 million at a $1 billion valuation. Interesting, huh? So, and their bookings are growing like crazy. Their growth has been substantial. And again, take a look at least this guy's got slacks on, not just jeans, so he's looking okay. But this guy, I don't know about the red tennis shoes, but okay. All right, Venti Privé, $3 billion company, trying to become a $15 billion company. This is just interesting. You probably haven't heard of it. Wants his number to be even higher. Not satisfied for that. They're basically Amazon in Europe. So kind of fascinating. Dropbox, one of my favorite stories. Who's a Dropbox user in here? Looking around the room. So they closed a $7.2 million round in 2007. But they've raised a lot more since then, $200 to $300 million, and it's at least $2 billion. But some people think the valuation as a private company don't have to publish the numbers. Could have been at a valuation as high as $10 billion. Another program coming through Y Combinator. Fascinating, huh? Dropbox's growth and the virality of it, just fascinating. So you can see why tech startups are pretty fun. Rovio is a wild card. $2 million valuation, but if Angry Birds keeps its momentum, could be a $1 billion company. Now, I went on this trip in March around the world too. Every single port I stopped at, went shopping, and there was Angry Birds in every single city, from Bangkok, Thailand, to India, to Sri Lanka, to Dubai. I could not believe how much Angry Birds stuff was everywhere. Now, a lot of it's probably knockoff, and they're not paying these guys their royalties, but still, it's amazing what that thing has done. Now, observation number 6. Utah is exceptionally good at SaaS. If you don't know what SaaS is, who knows what SaaS stands for? Have you guys learned that in here then and talked a lot about it? Has that been a part of the curriculum? Okay, so you know what that is, software as a service. This means that software, instead of being a product you buy and download on your hard disk and run from your own machine, it's being sold as a service running through a browser. You don't download any software to your system, and it's run through the browser. And this has exceptionally good business traits. First of all, you can't pirate it. You have to pay a subscription fee to get to it or be registered or authorized. If there's a bug in the software, you don't have to distribute to your 100,000 users an updated software and have them crash their systems and take 4 months to get it updated. You just go to your back office. Matter of fact, I just invested in a SaaS software company called 4Up. 4Up got a call from a golf course. It's a golf course. It helps golf courses with software. And a golf course called and said, "There's a bug in your software." And he goes, "Hold on a second. Hey, Harry, there's a bug." "What's the bug?" "What? Okay, there. Hey, Harry, it's in the module here. Just go fix that right now while we're on hold, okay?" "Okay." He goes and fixes the bug. It's fixed. "So try it now." "Okay, it worked. Great. Thanks." And it was completely fixed. and fixed across the entire user base. Interesting, huh? That was unheard of 10, 20 years ago, and it's being done. So kind of fascinating. Now, Omniture was a SaaS software company. It's a great business. Software runs through the browser. You have to subscribe to get access to it. And they happen to have a lot of people getting access and paying every time it was being accessed. Very fascinating business. So, all right. Now, let's not even get into the potential with mobile for a second, but I do want to think about that in the last couple minutes we have. This is where you shine. And I guess part of the message in trying to inspire you today is this. You don't know what you're capable of. You don't know what potential you have. Highly educated at a top university with the #2 ranked entrepreneurship program in the country. Tons of mentorship. Only a couple universities have better mentorship programs than we have, I would submit, in the country. You're achievement-oriented. Most of you have been raised with goals and achievement orientation. You're not out partying Friday night, ruining your life. You know, you're completely teed up and set up to be a captain of this going on. And there's so much potential in mobile that it's unbelievable. If you just take regular software running on a browser or in the old days on an executable file on the hard disk, and take that software and think it's going to be mobile, access mobile through a device that everybody carries around, and we're now going to know where that person's at, potentially to within 1 meter of accuracy. Adding another dimension to software. All the software that's ever existed, think about, now what would we do if we knew exactly the location of the user? What could we do? And it opens up exponential opportunities and power that haven't even been thought of yet. There's things dormant in your brain somewhere that you need to exercise and a release in your brain, an idea that could be the next billion-dollar idea. And it's going to come from a campus. It should come from this campus. It doesn't have to come just from Stanford. We've already had a lot come from this campus. More can be. You need to grab the brass ring and go make it happen. The biggest problem I have with students is they don't think big enough. Don't think big enough. You need to think like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Sergey Brin and Larry Page, and change the world with your ideas and create great things. Make things better and faster and cheaper. And somebody's going to do it. Guaranteed. Somebody's going to do it. One time Steve and I talked to one of our benefactors, Kevin Rollins, and he said, why can't somebody fix the prescription problem? Why are we writing paper prescriptions? We're now seeing it happen, aren't we? Somebody made it happen. He told us somebody should make it. Why didn't we do it? Right? Okay, so there's just a mountain of opportunity. It's like nothing. I view it like this. When I came out of school, when Steve came out of school, there was maybe this much opportunity, and there's this much for you. That much more. It's an amazing time. And unfortunately, my brain, I'm 50 now, I'm getting old, and I can't think nearly as fast as you. Luckily, I have experience on my side, but I can't. My synapses don't fire at the same rate you do. It's got to come from you. So think about what you're doing. Now, Scan, QR Code City. I told you it could be one of the most important companies out of BYU. This is an example. This is in a crowded field. He has 300 competitors. He had 300 competitors when he launched. He said, but I'm a designer. I'm going to make it better. Kind of like Steve Jobs thinks, right? People were playing MP3s before he came up with the iPod. But he did it better, and he did it right, and look what happened. And that's what we saw this kid, who's your peer, do. Kind of interesting. Now, let me talk about my latest gig here in the last few minutes that I have. I'm actually going to be involved in getting one going for the first time in a few years, actually being really intimately involved. It's a total pure play internet. Costs virtually nothing to start the company and get to a viable product. and has the potential to explode and be big. How did I think of the idea? For 18 months, when I was showering or getting ready in the morning or just had idle time, I couldn't get the thought out of my head. And I spent a year trying to find somebody has to be doing this because it's in a very easy to think of space. And nobody was doing it. And I'm running across that more now because of the power of mobile and the GPS factors in mobile and what's going on. There's actually opportunities still out there that are gargantuan. So letting you know today, kind of first time we've really talked about it too much, that Steve Little is partnering with me on this. Is that okay for me to say? There he is. So Steve Little is going to be my CTO. And he and I love working together, and he's one of the greatest guys in the world. Also got back here, my son, Tyler, wave your hand back there. So he's a student in the entrepreneurship program. He's a co-founder of the company. Mattson, son-in-law, back there. You can see my son, he's kind of ugly. You know, luckily we got Mattson in the family, so somebody was uglier. So, and then Brent, you can raise your hand. Brent's a hotshot young computer programmer that I recognized in the class and said, hey, this would be a fun team to do this idea with. And so we're in the midst of building this company. I'm not going to tell you too much more about it, but these guys would love to hear from you a little bit. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more, help us develop the product or something like that, they'll be in the back here. You can talk to them. They want to have some of you maybe even test it or something. But I'll just tell you this. It's in this area or this thing. And we're going to give Cupid an upgrade. Sounds kind of silly, doesn't it? But this is a huge space. It's going to be really fascinating. So that's kind of a teaser. In the next couple months, we're going to be launching a new company, and there's some fascinating things happening. There is a fellow that is one of the most successful angel investors in the state. His name is Scott Frazier, and he and his son are starting a company that's costing no money to start too. Fascinating. And that company is called JobLark. You can go to joblark.com and check it out in a very crowded HR space. And he's found a niche that's huge, and they're building the best solution for it. So even we old guys can do this, right? So there's nothing stopping you. So this is just such an exciting time for all of us. Let me conclude by saying this. Tech software entrepreneurship is a great place for student entrepreneurs. Successful tech software entrepreneurs get inordinately rewarded. I don't want to apologize for that. It's just the way society has worked. It's worked forever that way. Go back to IBM, go back to Xerox, go back to Microsoft, go back to Google, go back to Facebook, you name it. Society just does that. Lastly, think big. Don't constrain yourself to say, I have a little thing, a little idea. No, you should be thinking about how you can change the nation of the United States or the global world and make something big that'll change everything. So with that said, I want to thank you for your time. Go out and make it happen. I hope that some of you from this very class next year are winning all the competitions with your great idea. Thanks for your time.